Among the Valori, weakness was not forgiven, it was erased. They were a species born beneath twin violet suns, their crystalline cities grown rather than built, their bodies engineered by centuries of selective ascension. Strength among the Valori was measurable. Neural output, kinetic control, resonance with the axiom field that wrapped their planet like an invisible ocean. From birth, each Valori child was tested, categorized, and set upon a path that would either elevate them or quietly remove them from history. Aera was classified within moments of her first breath. Her neural glow flickered when it should have blazed. Her limbs trembled when exposed to even minor axiom currents. Where other infants bent light unconsciously, she barely stirred the air. The observers did not speak cruelly. Cruelty was inefficient. Deviation confirmed, one said. Genetic rollback insufficient, said another. Classification, non-ascendant. That was the end of discussion. Non-ascendants were not executed. That would imply importance. They were instead placed into service roles, maintenance, record-keeping, subterranean systems where their limited resonance could not disrupt higher functions. They lived, but they did not matter. Aera grew up knowing this truth as intimately as her own name. She watched her peers rise, literally, lifting themselves through axiom currents, bodies gleaming with harmonic light. She watched them train in the spires, mastering combat forms that folded space and time into elegant, lethal geometry. She swept the floors beneath those spires. Her body never adapted. Her resonance never strengthened. Every yearly assessment confirmed what everyone already knew. She was the weakest of her kind. Even among the non-ascendants, she lagged behind. Her axiom sensitivity was so low that tools designed for Valori barely responded to her touch. She relied on manual overrides, ancient physical interfaces long abandoned by her people. That was where she found solace, in the old systems. The archives beneath the city were vast, stretching deep into the planet's crust. They held records of forgotten experiments, extinct subspecies, and, most forbidden of all, accounts of other intelligent life beyond Valor. The Valori had encountered other species before. Most were deemed irrelevant. A few were erased. One, however, was marked with an unusual designation: humans. Aera discovered the file by accident while repairing a data conduit. The glyphs were old, the encryption primitive by Valori standards. She should have reported it. Instead, she read, humans were biologically fragile. Their lifespans were brief. They possessed no natural axiom resonance at all. And yet, according to the records, they were persistent. They adapted without redesign. They fought without superiority. They believed in individuals even when logic suggested failure. Aera did not understand why, but the concept lodged itself in her mind like a seed. Belief. No Valori had ever believed in her. Middle. The incursion came without warning. Anomaly alarms echoed through the crystalline city, harmonic frequencies shattering into discord. Aera felt it even in the depths, an absence in the axiom field, like a wound in reality. She had never felt anything like it. The overseers responded instantly, ascendants descending from the spires in blinding arcs of light. Weapons of pure resonance formed around them, elegant and devastating. They failed. Aera watched through a cracked observation panel as an entity tore through the defensive lattice. It was not a ship, not a creature in any form the Valori understood. It was a null construct, a mobile void that consumed axiom energy on contact. The Ascendant's greatest strength became their undoing. One by one, they fell, their light snuffed out as the construct advanced toward the core, Valor's planetary heart. If the core fell, the planet would die. Emergency protocols activated. Evacuation was impossible. There was only one remaining option: Manual core stabilization from within the null zone. It was a death sentence. No ascendant could survive there. Their reliance on the axiom would tear them apart. But someone without resonance. Aera felt the realization settle over her like cold clarity. She did not volunteer. Non-ascendants were not permitted to make such decisions. She simply went. Using maintenance tunnels no one else remembered, she reached the core chamber as the null field expanded. The air felt heavy, dead, but she could still breathe. The system still responded to her manual inputs. For the first time in her life, her weakness was not a limitation. It was the reason she survived. She stabilized the core long enough for containment fields to activate. The null construct was repelled, vanishing into the void from which it came. Valor was saved. The overseers did not celebrate. They convened in silence, their light dimmed not by loss alone, but by something far more dangerous. Contradiction. Aera stood before them, small and unresonant, having done what their strongest could not. Explain, demanded the High Conductor. I access the core manually, Aera said. My lack of axiom sensitivity allowed me to function within the null field. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A flaw does not become a virtue through coincidence, another overseer said. But doubt had already taken root. Weeks passed. Aera was reassigned. Not promoted, but observed. Scientists studied her physiology, her neural patterns. They searched for hidden potential, latent resonance. They found none. She was still weak. That was when the second anomaly appeared, this one not hostile, but communicative. A signal, originating beyond Valor's system. Crude, unshielded, unmistakably foreign. Human. The overseers debated eradication. It was protocol. Aera spoke before she could stop herself. We should answer. Every eye turned to her. They are ineffective, said the High Conductor. Why engage? Because they believe, Aera said, surprising even herself. They believe in what they can become, not what they already are. Silence followed. Against all precedent, the overseers allowed limited contact, on one condition. Aera would be the liaison. The humans appeared on the projection as soft, imperfect beings, faces lined with age and emotion, eyes filled with curiosity rather than calculation. Hello, one of them said. We didn't know if anyone would respond. Aera hesitated, then spoke. We hear you. Thus began an exchange unlike any the Valori had known. The humans asked questions. They shared stories. They spoke of failure openly, of individuals who had been overlooked, dismissed, then changed everything. They listened to Aera. No one had ever truly listened to her before. You saved your world, a human named Elias said during one transmission. It was situational, Aera replied. Anyone without resonance could have done it. But no one else did, Elias said. You did. The words unsettled her. Over time, the humans began to share their science. Not superior, but different. They described technologies that functioned without reliance on a single energy source. Redundancy. Adaptation. The Valori dismissed it as inefficient. Aera did not. She began to experiment in secret, combining human principles with Valori design. Systems that did not fail when resonance collapsed. Structures that bent rather than shattered. When the third incursion came, stronger and more complex, the ascendants were ready. Not because they were stronger, because Aera had changed how they fought. The victory was decisive. This time, the overseers could not deny her impact. Yet acceptance did not come easily. You are an anomaly, the High Conductor said. Your existence challenges the foundation of our hierarchy. Then perhaps the foundation is flawed, Aera said quietly. Such words would once have meant her erasure. Instead, They were recorded. Ending the final test came not from an external threat, but from within Valar itself. The axiom field, the force that had defined Valori existence for millennia, began to destabilize. Not collapse, but evolve, shifting in ways no ascendant could fully synchronize with. The overseers predicted a slow extinction, their species trapped by the very power that had elevated them. There was only one theoretical solution: decouple. To survive, the Valori would need to reduce their dependence on the axiom, to become something new, something less perfect. Many resisted. Ascension was their identity. To abandon it felt like death. Aera addressed the conclave for the first time not as an anomaly, but as an equal. We believed strength was singular, she said, that there was only one path upward. But the universe does not work that way. It never has. She spoke of humans, of how they thrived not because they were strongest, but because they adapted. Because they valued individuals not for their perfection, but for their perspective. I was born weak, Aera continued. I will always be weak by your definition. Yet when our strength failed us, it was weakness that endured. The chamber was silent. Change came slowly, painfully. The Valori began redesigning their society, not around ascension but balance. Ascendants learned to function without constant resonance. Non-ascendants were no longer hidden beneath the city, but brought into collaboration. Aera led the integration initiative, working alongside humans and Valori alike. Hybrid technologies emerged. New philosophies took root. For the first time, Valar looked outward not as a conqueror or judge, but as a participant. Years later, Aera stood beneath the twin suns, their light softer now, less blinding. Elias appeared beside her in holographic form, older, grayer. You changed your world, he said. We changed each other, Aera replied. She was still the weakest of her kind in raw power. Her resonance remained low. Her body never ascended. Yet children now studied her name in the spires, not as a cautionary tale, but as a turning point. The Valori learned that evolution did not always mean becoming more. Sometimes it meant becoming enough. And it all began the moment a human believed in someone no one else could see.